All right, let's start off by saying Barak Yahawah, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rawchaa, Qadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Syrophoenicians. And as you can see here, you have Phoenicia, Syria. This is a map. And pretty much we're going to get into this topic because you have a woman in the scriptures who's known as a Greek, Syrophoenician by nation, which you have a lot of Israelites that believe that she's an Edomite or a woman of another nation, which she's not. She's an Israelite that would be classified as an Israelite foreigner. Now, the Jews in Jerusalem, for those of you that don't know, would call the Israelites outside of Jerusalem following the Greek customs. They would call them heathens, uncircumcised, Gentiles, so on and so forth. All right, and when Yahawashi was teaching, you had some of these individuals that were in the area that were pretty much looked down upon. So, I mean, so you could somewhat understand. You have Jake in your neighborhood, and you have some Jakes that are viewed by other Jakes, suspicious, or, I don't like that dude, or, that person is weird. So that's somewhat, so you can get somewhat of an understanding of how the Israelites that knew that they were Israelites looked down upon the ones that were following the Greek customs. Now we're going to start off in the book of Mark, the 7th chapter. Now this same event is written in the book of Matthew, but I wanted to hit this one because it goes into the word Syrophoenician. The one in Matthew, the 15th chapter, mentions the word Canaan. Because that's the land that they were in. The land of Canaan later became known as the land of Israel. You had Canaanites living there. Later they were known as Israelites. Or not the Canaanites themselves. The Canaanites are Hamites. But the land of Canaan became known as the land of Israel. Or it was renamed the land of Israel. All right. So let's get into it. Just because somebody's called a certain name doesn't mean that they are of that nation. You have something known as citizenship. The Apostle Paul himself was an Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin. But he had a Roman citizenship. And there was times when he would invoke that Roman citizenship. All right. You have a character in the scriptures by the name of Uriah the Hittite. He was not a Hittite. He just happened to be living in that area or in that region. All right, so you could understand. And as we progress through the lesson, Lord's will, it'll be an edifying lesson. You can see that. So it says the Syrophoenician woman. As we showed you already, this is Phoenicia, Phoenicia, and this is Syria. The ancient Phoenicians, were Sidonians, which are Canaanites. But this woman had nothing to do with those Canaanites. She just happened to be living in this region. So let's get into it. Mark 7:24. And from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon. All right, Tyre and Sidon are seacoast cities. There goes Sidon right there. You have Tyre here. Okay. So let me just make this smaller, so you can see a little better. Let me make it a little bit smaller. Now you have here the Mediterranean Sea. You have Syria up above. You have Lebanon. You have Phoenicia, which that was what that was called. And then you have the cities of Sidon, Tyre. These cities right here. They were all like port cities. That they were right there by the sea. Okay. So this was the area that Yahawashi was in at this moment, at this particular time. It says, entered into a house and would have no man know it, but he could not be hid, right, because of the fame that he had. Okay? For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell at his feet. This woman came and heard of him, right, and fell at his feet. The woman at the well, who was an actual heathen, she didn't believe in the Lord until he started telling her certain things that she was like, oh, you must be the Messiah or the prophet. But this woman, as soon as she saw him and heard of him, she ran right to him, right, and fell at his feet, pretty much to worship him. The woman was a Greek. Now, we already know that the term Greek can be applied to an actual Greek person. It could be applied to anyone that spoke the Greek language. In the case of the New Testament, when the Apostle Paul said there's no difference between a Jew and a Greek, the reason why there's no difference is because they're both Israelites. One spoke Hebrew, the other one spoke Greek. And it's just that simple. So the woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation. And so when they see Syrophoenician by nation, oh, that's it, she's a heathen. She's a heathen. No. Let's go into this word Syrophoenician. Because the word Greek is Hellenist, or you can go into the word Hellene. And then you had a difference. There was two types of Greeks. You had the Greeks, then you had the Grecians. The Grecians, when you go back to the Greek word Hellenistas, or Hellenista, or Helleniste, pretty much meant Greek-speaking Jews. Those that knew that they were Israelites, but just happened to be speaking the Greek language. The Hellene, or Hellenists, were Israelites that spoke the Greek language that did not know that they were Israelites. They didn't practice, the customs, laws, statutes, commandments. They didn't keep the high holy days. They didn't circumcise themselves, because when you go back into the history of the Hellenization of the nation of Israel, Antiochus Epiphanes, who came out of the Seleucid line, pretty much forbade it for any Israelite to keep the customs of the Israelites. And it went so far as you couldn't even call yourself an Israelite or a Jew. So if you couldn't call yourself an Israelite or a Jew, what did you have to call yourself? You had to call yourself a Greek. Hence, there's no difference between a Jew and a Greek, because they were Israelites, but one side of them was being called Greeks. The other side of them was being called Jews, or Hebrews. When you go to the book of Acts, the 6th chapter, it goes into the Greeks and the Grecians and the Hebrews. All right, and that's the reason why the Apostle Paul said that. And if you don't understand that history, when you read the New Testament, you'll get confused. Okay. So when we look up this word Syrophoenician, it's a compound word, but you have the Greek word here, right here, Syrophoenician. Here you have the word pseudos, which the word pseudos is Syrian, and then you have Phoenike, which is Phoenix or Phoenicia. It says Syrophoenician, exalted palm, the name of a mixed nation, half Phoenician and half Syrians. All right, so these devils don't know what the hell they're talking about. It was just a province called Syrophoenicia. All right, and people that lived in that area were known as Syrophoenicians. Just like when you go into the Hellenistic time, when the known world which was conquered by Alexander the Greek, was parted among his 4 generals at his death. You had the Seleucid Empire that took over Syria, Syria, I believe that's what it was called. They were known as the Syrians. They were known as Syrians, but they were not Syrians. They were Edomites that took over their land. Just like Alexander, his father Philip, and all of those individuals that were being called Greeks or Macedonians, they took over that land and they called themselves Greeks or Macedonians. They were not actually Greeks or Macedonians. They were actually Edomites, because that is their true biblical nationality, okay? So it doesn't really tell you too much here. So when we go to Syrophoenician, what does Syrophoenician mean in the Bible? International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, Syrophoenician. This seems to mean that she was of Canaanite descent. Well, she was not of Canaanite descent. She lived in that land, because the Israelites also had their land was also known as the land of Canaan at one time. It says a native of Phoenicia, of the Phoenician seaboard. Right, she was living in that area. She was a native of the Phoenician seaboard. Doesn't mean that she was, so you can understand, you have Chinese families, right, who are descendants of the first so-called Chinese people or Moabite people that came to America. And those Chinese people here today that go back all the way to whatever, the 1800s, 1700s, whenever they first started coming here, their children are natives to this land because they were born here as opposed to their parents. Okay, so the ones you see around today that go all the way back to the ones that first got here, they're natives of here. They have citizenship because they were born here. It says Greek in religion, because you had a religion known as the Greek religion, and that's what Jake was into, and probably also in speech. So you got into the Greek religion and spoke Greek. So this right here, this somewhat explains the whole Israelite foreigner situation and why they were being called Greeks. All right, so now let's go back and let's read this again. So she was an Israelite foreigner that was in this area of Syrophoenicia, as we showed you in the map. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. But Yahawashi said unto her, let the children first be filled with who? The Israelites. For it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it unto dogs. So why did he call her a dog? Well, that's because she was a heathen, Ak. See, can't you read? No, the reason why he called her a dog, because she was without law. She was without the laws. Let's go real quick. Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. By keeping the commandments, right? Which we know we can't keep the commandments perfectly, but we do the best that we can. For without what? Without what? The commandments are dogs. So at this time, this woman who was being identified as a Greek or Syrophoenician, she was an Israelite foreigner that did not have laws. So that's why he called her a dog. And if you want to get technical, you had Israelites that were being called dogs. Get two precepts on that. Isaiah 56 and 10. His watchmen, meaning the Israelite watchmen, the ones that are foolish, are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all what? Dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. Yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough. So the Lord identifies Israelites as being dogs also. When we go to the New Testament, the book of Philippians, chapter 3. We could start at the first verse. Finally, my brethren, rejoice in Yahawah by Yahawashi. To write the same things to you, to me indeed, is not grievous, but for you it is safe. Beware of dogs. Beware of evil workers. Beware of the concision, which are what? The ones that knew that they were Israelites. Okay? So the scriptures identify, Israelites as being dogs. So at this point here, she was without law. That's why he called her a dog. And she answered and said unto him, yes, Lord, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. So she showed what? Great faith. And he said unto her, for this saying, go thy way, that the devil is gone out of thy daughter. All right, so pretty much when you go to the book of Matthew, he saw the great faith that she had. And that's another good one too. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs. The brother just put there. I'm not sure if that's Monaghan or if that's another brother. I know Monaghan has his GMS 144 spiritual soldiers or something like that. Okay, so now let's go from there. Let's move on. Now we're going to go all the way back to beginning. Dog also means impure mind. Okay. Genesis 11 and 31. This goes, now we're going back all the way back to the beginning of the people that lived in this region. Okay. And this is very important to understand There was another precept I was trying to find, which skipped, my mind. Lord's will, if we can find it, we can get it. I think it's in Genesis 27. Just bear with me 1 second. I just want to have it on deck just in case. Genesis 27. Let me go towards the end. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's it right there. Barak the Yahawashi. All right, so let me put this at the end over here for now. Let's go back to Genesis. All right, Genesis 11:31. And Terah, which was Abraham's father, took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. So did that make them Canaanites? No, they were in that land. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Now, where is Haran located? Well, let's go to the name Haran. All right, let's go to the land that was called Haran, which was named after Abram's brother that passed away in the land of Ur, the Chaldees. Haran, which means mountaineer. The city to which Abraham migrated when he left Ur of the Chaldees, and where he stayed until his father died before leaving for the promised land, which the promised land was Canaan. Okay, located in Mesopotamia, and Padanaram at the foot of the Mount Masias between the Kabor and the Euphrates. So we have Mesopotamia and Padanaram. We look at Mesopotamia, which it says, what country is Mesopotamia today? Iraq. Today, Mesopotamia is known as present-day Iraq. In the broader sense, the historical region of Mesopotamia included parts of present-day Kuwait, Syria, and Turkey. Okay, so you could understand these are all part of Mesopotamia. Let's see what this map is all about. Can't really see it too good. It's kind of blurry. Ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Can't really see it too good, but you get the idea. All right, so Syria was also parts of Syria was also known as Mesopotamia. So that's where they were, in Haran. Okay, now when we go back, let's see, did we read in here? Lot's wife, Haran, 1/4. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. Oh, there goes another one. Mesopotamia. See, have Mesopotamia, you have Iraq, Syria. This is all a part of it. You know, what the scholars call the Fertile Crescent, this green stuff that you see here, this is all the land of Israel, all the way down, and even some of these parts here, you know, that didn't belong to Moab or Ammon or Ishmael, but everything that was fertile belonged to the Israelites, from Egypt all the way to the Euphrates River in this area here. All right, so Syria was or is a part of Mesopotamia. All right, as you can see. Now, let me move this forward. Genesis 25:19. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. So Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob and Esau. The promise went from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. It says, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padanaram. See, because you had descendants of Abraham's family that lived in that area, and this is why you would have, you would actually have the sons or daughters would go to that land of Israel, would go to that land to get them wives so that they wouldn't marry the daughters of Canaan, because the Canaanites were cursed by the Lord. When you go back to Genesis, the 9th chapter, you will have to read that history to understand that. So now when we look up the word Syrian here, he wasn't an actual Syrian from the line of Aram, because Aram, when you go back to the Table of Nations, which Aram was one of the sons of Shem, that's where you get the modern day Syrians from. But you had Abraham's family that was living in that land that were called Syrian because they dwelt there. That they had citizenship in that land, so you could understand. All right, so the word there's Aramia, Syrian. That's all it says pretty much. We go back and we look up the word Padanaram. Some say Padanaram, Padanaram, Padan Aram, right? It says here Padan. Padan or Padanaram field, a plain or tableland in northern Mesopotamia in Aram. Aram is another way of saying Syria. A region of what? Syria. So this woman was living in that area, right around here. When you go back to this beginning here, this map here, that's Phoenicia, that's Syria. All right. She was a Syrophoenician because she was living in this area. So more than likely, either two things. Either she was a descendant of Abraham's family line, or she came out of the direct line of Israel and was living in that land. All right, because Abraham was not an Israelite, but Abraham came back later as an Israelite. Why? Because Abraham was of the line of the sons of God. Just as Isaac was, just as Lot was. All right, so you could understand. Now, let's move on from there. Where are we at? So we got the point. So you had Abraham with family in Syria, or what they call Padanaman or Haran. Okay, so let's move on. Here you have Abram's journey, which this is not Abram. Abram was a dark-skinned man. This is Ur the Chaldees in Babylon. This is where they lived. This is where he was born. Because when you go back to the flood, when the flood happened, after the flood, the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat up here. And from this point on, through through Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the whole earth began to become populated. And this was what they call the cradle of civilization after, the flood, which was in this area, Mesopotamia, the plains of Shinar. Here you got Sumer, Babylon, the Tigris and the Euphrates River. So they were here in Ur the Chaldeans, where he was born, and they took that trek to Haran. You see Padan Aram, which this is in the land of Syria. Also up here is Turkey, and then he came down through Canaan down into Egypt. All right. So just so you can get a visual of where they were at. Now in Genesis 27:42, Genesis 27 was when Isaac had told Esau to go, because he was a hunter. He told him to go get some venison. Venison is deer meat, and make him some savory meat as he loved. And he was going to give him the blessing. And what happened was, when he left to go hunting, Rebecca overheard, and she told Jacob to go get some goats, so she could hook up a stew for his pops. And that's how Jacob was able to get the birthright. The blessing from Esau, because he already had his birthright. And she overheard that Esau wanted to kill Jacob because of this thing. So what she did was she went to Isaac to ask him for her son Jacob to leave from there to go to be among her family line, because she didn't want him to marry any of the daughters of Canaan, because they were cursed. Genesis 27:42. And these words of Esau, her eldest son, were told to Rebekah, and she sent. It was told to her, and she sent and called Jacob her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice, and arise, flee thou to Laban my brother, to Haran, which was over there in the land of Syria, and tarry with him a few days until thy brother's fury turn away, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth, which are Canaanites. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me? So that's why she wanted to send him to Haran, to that region, to where her brother was, so he could take a wife. And when you follow the history, he went there. That's where he got his 2 wives. All right. The 2 wives were Leah and Rachel. Okay. And these were direct family of Abraham. And that's why he went there to go get a wife. All right. So here it is. You see the story building up as to who these Syrians that this Syrophoenician woman belonged to. All right. Now let's go to Deuteronomy 26:4. And the priest shall take the basket out of thine hand and set it down before the altar of the Lord thy power. This is dealing with, the basket of your first fruits. This is even way before the law was even written down on stone. And thou shalt speak and say before the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi thy power, a Syrian ready to perish was my father. Now who is this speaking about? This is speaking about Jacob. Now was he actually Syrian? No. But he came out of that line because he came out of the chosen line of Shem. All right, all the way through our facts, all the way down through Abraham, then Isaac, and then Jacob. So a Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there with a few, and became there a nation great, mighty, and populous. Okay, and that was what? The Israelites. And they went down into Egypt and became tributary or servants or slaves to the Egyptians. All right. Now let's go into the book of Judith and the Apocrypha. This is chapter 8, verse 26. Remember what things he did to Abraham, and how he tried Isaac, and what happened to Jacob in Mesopotamia of Syria. So let you know that Mesopotamia or Syria are also connected. When he kept the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, which was Bethuel, which was known, Laban, who was the brother of Rachel, which their father was Bethuel, which was known in the scriptures as Bethuel the Syrian. All right, now let's move on. Hosea 12:12. And Jacob fled into the country of Syria, and Israel served for a wife, and for a wife he kept sheep. All right, so you see the buildup. Now we have here something called Syrian Jews, and I put this in the description box. Syrian Jews are Jews who lived in the region of modern day state of Syria, and their descendants born outside Syria. Syrian Jews derive from their origin from 2 groups: from the Jews who inhabited the region of today's Syria from ancient times, known as Mustar Arabi Jews, and sometimes called as Mizrahi Jews. Mizrahi is a generic term for the Jews with an extended history in Western Asia or North Africa, because you had Israelites that were all in that area, and you had Israelites that were in Asia, you had Israelites that were in Syria, you had Israelites that were through the northern parts of Africa. Trying to get a precept here. Where is okay? Let's go to Acts chapter 2. And Salakia to you. I want to say Salakia to you, scoffers, because this is going to be a very boring lesson for your guys. Okay, this is not for you. You can move on. Go watch some booty shaking videos. Oh, and by the way, tonight is the Passover, so once the sun goes down, or before the sun goes down, make sure all the leaven is out your house and eat cakes, cookies, beer, things of that nature. Make sure that they're out of your house. You don't have to throw it out. You can put it in your car, until the Passover be over with, and it starts tonight and it ends Saturday night. Saturday night will be the 7th day. So Saturday night, when the sun goes down, you can start eating leaven again. All right, because it's a feast of 7 days. All right, so, and there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. We jump down to the 9th verse. Parthians and Medes and Elamites. So you had Israelites all in these regions. See, among the Medes, among the Elamites, and dwellers in what? Mesopotamia, and in Judea, and in Cappadocia, and Pontus, and what? Asia. So these Syrian Jews were descendants of that, Western Asia or North Africa. And from the Sephardi Jews, now the Sephardi Jews are Jakes, but you also had Esau mixed in there, and I'm explaining why. When you go back to the 13th tribe, the book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler, you had the royal line, which were the higher ups of them Khazars, and then you had the lower class of the Khazars. The lower class of the Khazars went into what today is called Germany. Okay, the higher class went into Spain, and they mingled among the Sephardis. So some of those are heathens, but the majority of them are Jakes. When you go back into the history of it, okay. But the majority of them are Jakes, from the Sephardic Jews. All right, so and from the Sephardic Jews, referring to Jews in extended history in the Iberian Peninsula, example Spain and Portugal, who fled to Syria after the Alhambra decree forced the expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492. So a lot of these people that went there, among these, that are there today, when Amalek or these the Jays came in there, you have a lot of Jakes in that land still, that extend back to to these times, and even before that. So that woman was not an Edomite. She was not a heathen. She was not a Canaanite. She was an Israelite that was living in that region and that had that citizenship. Now, when we jump down here, history, there have been Jews in Syria since ancient times, according to the community's tradition, since the time of King David, and certainly since early Roman times. Jews from this ancient community were known as Mustarabin, Arabizers to themselves, or Moriscos to the Sephardim. Okay, and I put this in the description box if you want to read more on it. I didn't read all of it. I just read some of it. All right, now let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Matthew to show you that Yahawashi went to this region. Matthew chapter 4, because you had Israelites there. We just read that he was in there for the Syrophoenician woman, or he ran across a Syrophoenician woman, which was an Israelite that was living in that region. So we got here Matthew 4 and 23. It says this is a ministry in Galilee. And Yahawashi went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of diseases among the people. And he told the 12 apostles or the 12 disciples to teach the lost sheep of the house of Israel, heal the sick, cleanse the leper, so on and so forth. And his fame went through all Syria, throughout all Syria, because he was in that region teaching, because you had a lot of Israelites in that area. All right, so that's the point there. Let's move on from there to the book of Acts. Let's go to Acts 15 now. Let's read about the Apostle Paul. Acts 15 and 23, and then we're going to jump. Acts 15 and 23. I'm going to start at 22. Then pleased it the apostles and elders and the whole church to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, namely Judas, surnamed Barsabas, and Silas, chief men among the brethren. And they wrote letters by them after this manner. The apostles and elders and brethren send greeting unto the brethren, the brothers, the elder apostles and elders and brethren, send greeting unto the brethren which are of the Gentiles or the Israelite foreigners in Antioch and Syria and Cilicia. So this woman was not an Edomite. She was not a Canaanite. She was an Israelite that was being called a Syrophoenician because she had that citizenship, just like the Apostle Paul had Roman citizenship. Now let's go from there to Acts, same book, 18. And we'll go straight to the point, 18 and 18. And Paul, after this, tarried there yet a good while, and then took his leave of the brethren, and sailed thence into Syria. And with him Priscilla and Aquila, having shorn his head in Cenchrea, for he had a vow. So he was in Syria. There was a lot of ministry going on in Syria. Yahawashi was ministering there, the disciples, the Apostle Paul. Now let's go from there to Galatians 1 and 21. It says, afterwards I came into the regions of Syria and Cilicia. Point blank. Now, the last precept I have for this topic will be in the book of 1 Ezra, chapter 8. 1 Ezra, chapter 8, verse 22. I command you also that you require no tax, nor any other imposition of any of the priests or Levites or holy singers or porters or ministers of the temple. This is back during the rebuilding of the temple, or of any that have doings in this temple, and that no man have authority to impose anything upon them. And thou, Ezra, according to the wisdom of the Most High, ordain judges and justice, that they may judge in all Syria and Phoenice all those that know the law of thy power, and those that know it not thou shalt teach. So you had Israelites in Syria and Phoenice. Syrophoenician, the woman was a Syrophoenician by nation, meaning she was an Israelite that was there, descendant of these Israelites that were there way back in the time. All right, let's go back to that. Matter of fact, let me bring this here. Let's go back to Mark, and let's read that together. Mark 7, let's go straight to the point. 26, the woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, meaning she was in that land, she was born in that land. 1 Ezra 8:23, and thou, Ezra, according to the wisdom of the Most High, ordain judges and justices, that they may judge in all Syria and Phoenice all those that know the law of thy power, and those that know it not thou shalt teach. These are the Israelites that were there. This woman was a descendant of these people. All right, I don't know how much clearer it has to be, but those that get it, those that don't. And that's how it is. And that's the only way it is. And that's the way it is. All right, so with that, I pray that you brothers and sisters have been edified. This is, more so for those studious. This is not for, the ones that are seeking for entertainment. And that's not what this is about. Once again, the Passover's, tonight. Clean your house of leaven. If you have anything there, just put it in your car. Money is hard to come along or buy these days, so you don't want to throw out stuff that you could keep. You could just put it in your car, that way it won't be in your house. All right, so with that, I pray that you brothers and sisters have been edified. Until the next time I say shalom, and have a Pesach Ashar, which is a happy Passover. And may the spirit of Yahawah guide and protect everyone there and back home safely. Shalom.